Welcome back to another edition of Down to the Wire, the weekly headline news source on the local Pagcast channel. Once again, joined by my NHL analyst, Nolan Thode. Nolan, how are you doing today?
I'm not bad. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing as good as I can. The Habs kind of struggling there, but there's always two sides to look at it. They completely shell the Winnipeg Jets, but then they have their success against Vancouver, and that sort of surely died off against the Winnipeg, or not the Winnipeg Jets. They play them tonight, but the Calgary Flames surprisingly come off to that's a pun right there, a hot start in their, new coach. So, I'm looking for an Edmonton win tonight as the Montreal Canadiens are only 2 points ahead of the Calgary Flames. And, like like all the analysts and all the people have predicted, the, North Division is certainly coming down to the wire.
No, yeah, it's super close. And I think we'll all be tuning into the Battle of Alberta on Monday night.
Well, last Monday, let's recap the news during the week. We learned that there could be draft lottery changes, to the system that could be coming. So that is teams limited to no more than two lottery wins in a 5-year period. Teams are only allowed to jump up 10 spots with a lottery win. A reduction in the number of picks decided by a lottery from 3 to 2. A potential change, these potential changes won't take effect until 2022, and previous lottery victories will not count as a team's total. So that's a clean slate for all teams. Personally, I hate it. I don't, the way the NHL has sort of staged the draft lottery is kind of like this huge event, right? It's broadcasted on TV. And everyone kind of tunes in, gets their popcorn. It's actually quite fun, even though if your team's not in it, or if your team is in it, it's still fun for everyone. That's how I kind of view it. And I feel like by putting these rules in, it takes the fun away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the draft lottery. And the current rules, I don't have too many issues with. Being an Oilers fan, we've been kind of, gifted by the draft lottery within the last 10 years. But, the current set of rules, it's not too bad, but it just kind of like, I think preventing tanking is what the NHL is kind of just trying to do with, the whole draft lottery system. But we'll see, these new proposed rules, how much of an impact it will have.
And, I feel like when you do win, right, a draft lottery, there's the rule where you can't have two lottery wins in a 5-year period. I don't really like that simply because, if you draft a bust, within that 5-year period, it's almost saying like you need a hockey degree to understand the draft lottery, right? You shouldn't need a hockey degree to understand the sport. And I feel like that's what NHL is trying to do. And I'm certainly not a fan of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And I guess parity in the league, just in terms of, where prospects are going. I see what they're kind of trying to do with, making sure that, teams aren't just going to be able to build to the draft completely and get stacked. There's other elements to building a contending team. But, we'll just see. And, more news on this will come, I'm sure, before any, official rules have been changed.
Again on Monday, Demko with another solid performance against Montreal. I think that was the game that Vancouver won in a shootout. I think he is instilling confidence within the Canucks fan base. I think they have found, I guess, a starting goaltender they can run with because certainly he's not giving the net back to Holtby.
Yeah, no, he's been lights out, and it was kind of a split tandem at the start of the year, but it just seems that Demko's absolutely run away with this net, and I don't, like you said, I don't see him giving it back anytime soon.
Leon Dreisseidel, the superstar for the Oilers there, he ended a 8-game goal drought with a goal and assist against Ottawa there on Monday night. And, when you talk about an 8-game goal drought with Dreisseidel, who's now on a line with McDavid and Yamamoto, it's crazy to think that he would go and, McDavid was playing with Pujolarvi, and I think Yamamoto and Dreisseidel was with Ennis and RNH. I could be wrong there. But we don't really see Dreisseidel go on that big of a drought because he's so dominant.
Yeah, the 3 of those games were against Toronto, so, it was a tough game, for the Oilers as a whole. But, just to get the monkey off the back, ending it against Ottawa, like I said in the last episode, Ottawa's that kind of team. If you need a confidence booster, you can sort of, put out your players and maybe get it against them. But, it's just good because if it went any longer than 8 games, then, confidence issues and all that can start to play an effect. And with a player like Dreisseidel, he's been super confident and been able to, score at a high rate, 50 goals 2 seasons ago. And then, one of the top Richard guys last year. It's weird when he's not putting the puck in the net, every other game or so.
On Tuesday, it was Patrick Kane's 1,000th game against the Dallas Stars. And to celebrate what he did and what the Blackhawks agreed upon was he did a video, you could call it ASMR or whatever you want, of him, putting you to sleep by counting 1 through 1,000. And it's like an hour-long video. You could basically listen to it as a podcast if you wanted to. And I thought that was kind of a funny, neat way, to see someone celebrate their 1,000th game, because teams are finding new ways to celebrate these milestones.
Yeah, I wonder where he came up with the idea to do that. I know I'm not going to be watching the full hour long, 1 to 1,000. I know my numbers fairly well. Perhaps if it was McDavid, maybe I'd watch just because I'm an Oilers fan. But, just great 1,000 games for Patrick Kane, one of the best players, one of the best American players of all time for sure.
Chicago definitely didn't come to play on Kane's 1,000th game as they lost that 6-1 to Dallas. And, I guess you could say the pregame stuff was fun and all that, with the whole video there counting 1 through 1,000. But then when it comes to game time, the Blackhawks didn't show up. It was an embarrassment.
Yeah, very unfortunate. To lose 6-1 on any given night is tough, and especially, when your star players is celebrating such a milestone.
The Buffalo Sabres are hosting fans starting on March 20th against the Boston Bruins for select home games. And I kind of bold select there because I find that key terminology that they aren't allowing fans for the rest of the home games or, the rest of the season. It's like, they aren't sure that fans will buy tickets.
Yeah, the season ticket holders, they rejected their seats to come back. So now they're opening, tickets to the general public. It's just, really unfortunate everything that has happened for the Sabres this year. And, now Eichel's going to be missing time and such. It's just going to be tough to, fill the stadium.
And one way they could fill the stadium is hoping that Boston Bruins fans will hopefully snag up those tickets, and I'm pretty sure they will be. So if that game is televised or if you find it on a streaming site, we might see the KeyBank Center be full of Boston Bruins fans.
Yeah, I'm not sure what game it was, but over the weekend I did watch a game, and I saw in the crowd, a couple of, I think it was, the Devils Islanders, they played last night. And you saw a couple of Islanders fans in the Devil Stadium. So, whatever it takes to get the, limited capacity, filled up.
Darcy Kemper could miss up to 4 weeks. That's a huge blow for Arizona because they rely heavily on goaltending. They seem to be a defense approach. They're in one of those slumps where they can't get offense from the guys who should be providing their offense, like guys like Kessel, Christian Dvorak's another one. Connor Garland's having a struggle there. So it's a huge blow for Arizona. And like we saw in the bubble, they couldn't keep up with Colorado due to lack of goal scoring. So, Arizona is one of those teams who relies heavily on goaltending.
Exactly. Over the last 2 seasons, Darcy Kemper has been, one of the top goalies in the league. If you, actually sit down to watch an Arizona game, he's incredible. And, missing him for time definitely hurts them. And, they have kind of, Antti Ranta as well, but he's been dealing with some injuries too. Aiden Hill has been solid, a little unproven. And it just sucks that the team's going through a little bit of an offensive slump at this time as well.
I think that we are seeing more fights this season than normal, and that could be due to the divisional alignment. And maybe it's because of the schedule where you play these 2-3 game sets against one opponent. But there's definitely more fights that are happening than in a normal 82 game season, in my opinion.
Yeah, when it came out that they were only going to be playing the couple teams that were in their own division, I kind of got excited just because of a rivalry sort of element. When you're playing these teams, 9 to 10 times in a year, you're going to develop somewhat of a hatred for them. And I think, fights increasing is definitely, attributed to that.
And, it can only get more, I guess, brutal, for lack of a better term, when we get to the playoffs, since you've been playing this team for, 10 times the season, and then you get, a minimum of 4 games up against them in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited for the playoffs in this season just because, the teams pretty much have a book on every other team in their own division. So the, coaching is going to come into play and really be an impact. But, once you get out of your division, you haven't played these guys in, over a year, it depending on, who you played in the playoffs in the bubble last year, or even if you were in the bubble. But it's going to be an interesting playoff for sure.
We got news about the American TV deal. NBC is the current rights holder, and that is set to expire after this season. ESPN agreed to a 7-year NHL TV deal starting next fall, which is 2022 or 2021. Expected to host 4 of 7 Stanley Cup finals between 2022 and 2028. The NHL is currently working on a B package. So ESPN is the full A package. The B package will host the remaining 3 of 7 Stanley Cup finals. So, I want to get your take before I'll share my thoughts.
I'm super happy just because, it's kind of been, somewhat of a, reoccurring kind of joke that ESPN doesn't really focus too much on hockey. I follow the main ESPN account on Instagram, and, occasionally, maybe once in a couple months, they'll post a hockey post and all the comments will be like, oh, you finally posted hockey. Hockey just kind of gets the short end of the stick in terms of, the 4 major North American sports leagues from ESPN coverage. But I think, now, them buying into it, it does seem that they're going to try to, pay more attention. I think it's just going to be big for the game in terms of growing, its target audience.
Yeah, and I think ESPN is sort of a bigger market than NBC, in my opinion. So I think growing the game, it's good for the NHL to side with ESPN. The B package, however, is still wide open. It's reported that, Fox or NBC could be, could get the B package, but we don't know who it is yet. So ABC and ESPN, they're both owned. We'll have one conference final. There's going to be 25 regular season games on the 2 networks there. And, the NHL owners are praising Gary Bettman for getting a deal done during a pandemic, whether, it's been so negative that, finally a commissioner, I guess one of the best commissioners has gotten a deal done that, this deal is worth over $400 million. It's double than the NBC deal. So, hopefully ESPN gets good commentators. A lot of people are saying Gary Thorne is going to be back. We never got to listen to how good Gary Thorne was, right? So I'm hoping we do get him back as a potential play-by-play. And, there's apparently going to be a Thursday national broadcast for ESPN. And, that's all that I've heard of on Twitter and around the news source. So I like it. It's a change of scenery, and I'm open for it.
No, yeah, I'm super excited and just growing the game, going to the point you made about Gary Bettman. I think, whether you love him or hate him, I think, he has been positive in terms of, I think his goal more so with the, his outlook of being the commissioner is trying to, grow the game and get, fans into the rinks and trying to, brand hockey, more than it had been before. And I think, you look at Bettman in his tenure as commissioner, I think he has done, a solid job.
Toronto and Winnipeg kicked off a crucial series for the top team in the North Division. We saw Connor Hellebuck turn into basically his best in a trophy form during that season or during that series. And, he was stopping so many high danger chances from Toronto, slot shots, tips, deflections, really seeing through traffic, being positionally well. I love that series. That was one of my, so far favorite series to watch during the season.
No, and I agree with you on that. I think, this last, they had a 3-game series over the last week. And I think it just, for fans of the North Division, like you and myself, and just fans of the league, I think, it's exciting. And hopefully we are able to see Toronto and Winnipeg, whether it be in the first round or, to win the North, face in the playoffs, because, the games that they have played have been really close, really entertaining, and just solid hockey throughout.
And, going on your point there of, very exciting, Tuesday was filled of exciting games. There were, a couple blown leads, such as the one that the Caps blew to the New Jersey Devils. The Caps blew a 4-1 lead. However, they did recover to win 5-4 in overtime. The Sabres blew a 3-1 lead. And another 4-2 lead against Philly in the same night. They ended up earning a loser's point in the shootout. And 5 games, either went to overtime or shootout. So definitely a fun-filled, action-packed night there on Tuesday.
Yeah, it was a great night. Lots of goals. When the Sabres are scoring 4 goals, I think, just it's a good thing for the league. They've been struggling as of late, and to be able to put 4 on the board in one game, especially against a team like Philly, they chased Carter Hart. If you had told me that before the game started, maybe I wouldn't have believed you, but, definitely a great night just around the league.
A huge accomplishment for Barry Trotz, who reached 1,700 games as a coach. He's a 2-time Jack Adams Award winner, and he obviously won the Stanley Cup in 2018 with the Washington Capitals. The Islanders won that game they played on Tuesday night in the shootout. And, who knows, maybe he could be the Team Canada coach, because I think he certainly is a front runner for that.
Yeah, Barry Trotz, just one of the most accomplished coaches. I was super happy for him to get that cup in 2018, because it seems like, he's done everything in the league now. Very successful, and the record speaks for himself. Being able to go to New York after Washington and turn, what people didn't think was a, playoff roster to, a really competitive team.
On Wednesday, Dante Fabro was suspended for 2 games for his elbow on Brock McKinn of the Carolina Hurricanes. And if you watch the replay there, it's pretty evident that, there was head contact. It seemed as though, head was the principal point of contact, in my opinion. But, he has since returned from that suspension. So there's no need. So, for Preds fans, there's no need to worry about him not being in the lineup.
Yeah, for those 2 games, it was a little bit of a worry because, they're missing Roman Josi at the time and Ryan Ellis as well. So big blow to their defense. But, just in terms of the suspension, I agree with it. Just like you said, head was the main, principal point of contact. And, it was just a fair suspension given out by the league.
Kaapo Kähkönen is making a name for himself in the Calder Trophy race because he went on an 8-game win streak for the Minnesota Wild, which is, the longest all time by a Minnesota Wild rookie goalie. And it's actually the longest win streak by any goalie this season. So, Minnesota went on such a tear this past week. They're second in the West. And I think, they're a legit playoff contender team. They are a force to be reckoned with because, we can talk about Kirill Kaprizov and, what offense he brings to that team. And then, coming out next, you got Jordan Greenway, Joel Eriksson Ek, and Marcus Foligno, Marcus Foligno has been one of the hottest players as of late. He's since been injured for a couple weeks. He won't be back, but nonetheless, Minnesota has a really good top 6, and Kirill Kaprizov really has good chemistry with Matt Zuccarello.
Yeah, over the last probably 5 or 10 years, Minnesota's always kind of been solid on the back end in terms of, defense. They got guys like Ryan Sutter, Spurgeon, Brodin, Dumba, just a really solid group. And then their goaltending's been solid as well. But it's just kind of, been waiting for the offense to take off, and they're able to be a very successful team. And now, with the emergence of, my Calder favorite, at least Kirill Kaprizov, they're able to be, a super competitive team and, not only being competitive, but they're doing so in a fun way where, in past years, maybe Minnesota's, getting wins. However, they're doing it in a boring way. But this year, Minnesota's been a team to turn into.
I agree. And, I think that Minnesota is now fun for us to watch, whether it's you want to watch it for Kaapo Kähkönen or the aforementioned Kirill Kaprizov. Either way, if your first 2 initials or if your first 2 initials of your first and last name are K and K, you better be watching in.
Yeah, no, for sure. Minnesota's been good this season. It's been exciting.
During that, Wednesday night game between the Minnesota Wild and the Las Vegas Golden Knights, Dylan Coghlan scored his first NHL goal, and then he followed that up with his first career hat trick in the same game. I mean, it sucks that Minnesota won 4-3. They were leading 4-1, actually. And, I just thought that was kind of a cool accomplishment for the young stud there in Vegas.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I think he's a defenseman as well. And, if a player comes in, a forward, they score a hat trick, I feel like, it's super impressive. But when a defenseman does it, it's even more. And, just to keep adding on to it, it was his first career goal in that game as well. Just an incredible night for him. Unfortunate they weren't able to, pull out the win.
Leon Draisaitl recorded 5 points against Ottawa on Wednesday night. Edmonton is perfect against Ottawa. And, it seems like Ottawa plays tough against, Toronto, who's a top team, the Jets, who are a top team. And, we can always mention Montreal, but then when they come up, against Edmonton, it's like they're Swiss cheese. There's so many holes that Edmonton exploits, and, they do a pretty good job. So, for people that argue, oh, Montreal isn't legit because, they're only good against Vancouver. Well, I mean, what does that say about Edmonton? Is Edmonton not legit because half of their points have come against Ottawa? They're perfectly like 7-0-0 or something like that. So, I mean, I don't know. That's just two sides of the story.
Yeah, I remember, I'm not sure what our lowest point was, but it was either 3-5 or 3-6 to start the season. But I told myself, I said, we haven't played Ottawa yet. And when you're countering in these Ottawa games, I think we can start to get on our feet a little bit. And it just seems that, we've been able to take advantage of when we are playing Ottawa. We seem to, bring our game, and, whether it be getting a close win, we can still pull out, or, just absolutely dominating them. The Oilers just seem to have Ottawa's number all season.
Matt Murray is now at an .880 save percentage, and it is currently not the best if you're a Sens fan that, wants to see Murray succeed. And, that contract is not looking good as well.
Yeah, the contract was signed, long-term potentially to have that starter. But, if he's coming in, putting in an .880, he's not getting a ton of support either. He's kind of just getting shots on. He's either going to, save the puck and have a great, maybe like .940, 1 goal against performance, or he's going to get shelled and maybe even pulled. So it's just unfortunate for that, sort of goalie carousel in Ottawa, which, we at the Pagcast have been paying a little bit more attention to than, maybe the average person.
Leon Draisaitl had his third career hat trick against Ottawa, and that's 15 points for him this season against the one team, and he sits 2 points shy of the most by an active player against one opponent in a single season. That's insane. So he's going to pass it. He's going to accomplish that record.
Yeah, was that? Did you write that on the Wednesday, or was that?
I think it could be on the Wednesday. I thought I updated it because I went through my notes on Sunday, but he may have passed it. He may have surpassed it.
Yeah, they played on Friday, so he might have passed that already. But 15 points against one opponent is just crazy. And if they play Ottawa a couple more times, it's only with Leon Draisaitl, I think he'll get it.
I mean, what a German, he is so good. The lethal German, the great German, what a draft pick that was. He is certainly, a force to be reckoned with. And, when you put McDavid and Dreisseil together on one line, that's a human highlight reel I could watch 24/7. Like, he got McDavid's IQ, his head ups all the way. He's looking for Dreisseil like 97% of the time. That's no pun on his number. But I mean, if you just watch, like, it's so fun watching the Oilers highlights. I have a great time.
Absolutely. I was at work for this game, actually, and I looked at my phone near the end of my shift, and I saw Leon Draisaitl goal, 6-0 Edmonton, and I went, geez, I'm missing a good game. And I eventually got home and was able to watch the highlights, and my jaw was just on the floor the whole time. Those two are very special pair to watch.
Speaking of goaltenders, like we mentioned with Matt Murray, the argument for Price is, he's found his game. Let's go through his last 5 games. So on March 13th, he had a .917 save percentage versus Calgary. On March 10th, he had a .958 save percentage versus Vancouver. On March 8th, he had a .966 save percentage versus Vancouver. March 6th, he had a .963 save percentage versus Winnipeg. And on March 2nd, he had a .963 save percentage against Ottawa. So, I mean, it's Price went on that slump. There's no doubt about that. But it seems like he's found his game. And maybe it was because of Stephon Waite. It really does look like that. Because now he's playing with more confidence. His hands are out in front of him. He seems to be tracking the puck more.
Yeah. Do you know the specific guy that they hired as the new goalie coach?
Sean Burke. But he was in quarantine. So this is like the Laval goalie coach.
Yeah. So, he's just, making a name for him to stay, having a job on the Canadiens coaching staff. But, Carey Price, just one thing you don't do with superstar players is doubt them, because, you give them enough time and eventually they'll be able to prove themselves. And, I'm happy that Carey Price has been able to do so over the last 5.
And actually, as we speak right now, I got the Nashville and Tampa game on in front of me. Nashville is up 3-0 with 8 minutes left in the second. So, they just scored a shorty. Not the best look for Tampa. They have Curtis McElhinney in the net. So, obviously, I don't think Nashville would be able to put up these numbers against Andrei Vasilevsky.
Yeah, very strange, outcome. When it was 0-0 after one, and when you were bringing up the score again, I wouldn't have expected 3-0 with 8 minutes to go in the second. Maybe Nashville.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. But maybe Nashville, maybe it's the start of something new.
Who knows? Finishing off our notes on Wednesday, Evgeny Dadonov scored his 100th career goal, Wednesday against Edmonton, and, in that 7-1 route. He was in and out of the league. He's one of those guys that returned from the KHL. So it's good to see that he accomplished that, certainly accomplished that achievement.
Yeah, no, 100%. He's been kind of up and down this season, but it is nice for him to get on the board, even if it is against the Oilers.
On Thursday, it marked 1 year since the NBA shut its doors down, which was the first domino in the effect of the sports world closing. And I think we can both agree that we are certainly happy to have sports on back again.
No, absolutely. I was thinking the other day, the time, we're living in right now, it's not great, but the fact that we have sports, every night we have, a show that's put on, by these athletes. I'm just super grateful that I am, a sports fan, just because I don't know what I'd be doing without it.
Well, I'm going to share, I guess I'll share a story of what I was doing. I guess when I heard the news that, the NBA was going to shut down, and I think I was driving home or something, and maybe, I don't know, actually, I don't know what exactly I was doing, but the only thing I remember from that wild day, like it was a wild day at school, it seemed like the coronavirus was going to impact North America in some shape or form. Yeah. And, to see the, Rudy Gobert test positive, it certainly wasn't a pleasant sight, but there's just I had a feeling that the NHL would just continue, and I said to one of my buddies, like, there's no way the NHL pauses their game. Like there's absolutely no way the NHL would stop season because of this. And
yeah, I think I agree with you in being an optimist back then. I was not, prepared for what was to come.
Exactly. Yeah. And, it's not me kind of like blocking it out. It's more or less just me not knowing, right? Like we didn't know what this virus was a year ago. We were just informed about, you'd read it in the news, but it's something far away, and we're not worried about it. We still pack the stands, even when the World Health Organization announced on March 11th that it's a global pandemic. We just went out as business. We were living our, I guess, past normal lives. That's a weird sense to say, but it's true. And I just. When I was driving home, I get the notification, and it's like the NBA shuts down. It's like, oh no. So I didn't expect the NHL to, but that's my feeling on the the 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, the week leading up to it, actually, there was some news in terms of, I think, San Jose, them in the Oakland area, they had already agreed that they weren't going to have fans in the stands, and that was kind of weird. And I remember I was sitting on my couch, playing video games in my basement, and I looked at my phone and it said, Jazz Thunder game postponed. And I kind of looked at that and I was like, oh, okay, what's happening? And then I remember I finished playing video games and I went upstairs and my dad said, the NBA has been suspended, and I said, what? And I looked on the TV, and him and we kind of had the same idea. We thought maybe that was the start of something. So we, at 10 p.m. on, whatever night it was, we went straight to the grocery store. And, there were some people with the same idea as us, but, just a crazy night. And, 1 year later, it's had such an impact on our lives.
Now, do you agree with the statement of how, do you think this holds the same weight as an example of Jose Bautista's home run in the ALDS? It's one of those where, you had to be there moments, we'll never, you always know where you were when you heard the news.
Yeah, I remember exactly where I was for Jose Bautista. But I think this definitely compares to that. I think, just sports moments, there are, you remember where you were when this shot was made, or, this save was made. However, I think this, applies to even non-sports fans. Just, I think that, shutting down of the NBA had such a, global impact, and it really was the start of, the downfall of everything that happened in March 2020.
Well, speaking of global impact, Gary Bettman and Bill Daly had a Zoom conference to discuss how the impact, the league, how it's been impacted the past year due to the coronavirus. Starting off, the North Division, they said is an only one-time thing. They want to bring back regular divisions for the 2021-2022 season. Elliott Friedman reported on Saturday headlines that, Canadian teams want to see the North Division again because they want fans to enjoy it. So there's actually going to be a flat cap for the next 4 seasons, which means that, players won't be getting the raise they expected to, which is very unfortunate. It's going to be very hard to make revenue for owners. The current plan is not to have a bubble for the playoffs, but it's way too early to judge right now due to the, COVID being up and down basically every day. Yeah. The NHL and the International Olympic Committee, the talks are on the back burner as the IOC wants to focus on the Olympics that are currently set for this summer in Beijing 2021. The draft is likely to stay put on July 23rd, 24th, for that date. The changes to the draft lottery could be finalized as early as next week. Bettman believes there isn't tanking in the NHL, which I saw trending on Twitter. It's very odd that a commissioner would say that, because a prime example would be the 2015 Buffalo Sabres. And Bettman, to close out the conference, the last tweet that I saw, or the last news cycle that I wrote down, was that Bettman has had both vaccine doses. So, which, we kind of touched on last week, saying that players they can get the vaccine, and, who knows? Who knows how many players have received the vaccine? It's very undetermined. It's not released to the public, but Bettman decided to say, yeah, I've had both vaccine doses. That's just basically the Zoom conference in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think it's a positive thing for Bettman to, kind of publicly say that he's gotten the vaccine, just because, I think it's a good thing, for NHL fans, if they see the commissioner of the league getting vaccine, it might drive them to, have the mindset of that being the right thing. And, hopefully, the world can start to slowly become, like you said, what our normal lives were before this all happened.
The key word you're kind of slipping up on is authority, right? It adds that authority that a big name person in sports world, has gone the vaccine, right?
Mm-hmm. No, for sure.
And actually, it was during the Habs and Canucks game that same night, Elliott Friedman said during one of the intermissions that helmet ads could be something that stays past the COVID season. There's been, positive news coming from that for owners that are getting revenue from them. Personally, I hate this. As a fan, I don't like it. I want team logos back on the helmets because that's the way I grew up. What scares me, there's a little feeling that I'm scared about that's going to be exposed to jerseys. But yeah. I have a feeling that, players won't agree to that. I think the NHLPA won't agree to, having ads on the jersey, but I'm not sure, how the financials work, or the discussions work about that. Like, I'm not sure if the NHL can force that, or if the PA has some sort of voice in that. I would hope the PA has some voice.
Yeah, 100%. I think you and I, we both, like you said, grew up just watching, the logo on the helmet. I think I've gotten somewhat used to the ads on the helmet. And in the time of the league, I think, any way for the, league to be making revenue is a positive thing. And like you said, I just hope it doesn't end up, having ads on the jerseys, just because I think, as an NHL fan, that's something that I would not want to be watching.
The Vegas Golden Knights are increasing their fan capacity from 15 to 20%. That is huge news, as, who knows how many fans they will be getting in towards playoff time. Like, we could probably get up to 30, 35% if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, these slow increases, the 5% at the time might not be big, but if they keep doing this every couple of weeks, eventually, things are going to be back to normal. And it's just a positive thing to see that these, teams are able to do this.
Getting into some Habs talk for a quick second, Ben Sherratt suffered a fractured hand in a fight with JT Miller on Wednesday. It was reported today that Ben Sherratt is now out 6 to 8 weeks, basically the end of the season. So that's a huge blow for Montreal's top four. You could argue top two as well because he was playing top 2 minutes alongside of Shea Weber. And, although people criticize Sherratt heavily, I see it all the time on Habs Twitter, they play 23 minutes a night, they as in Shea Weber and him, against star players in the North Division, such as duos like McDavid, Dreisseidel, Matthews Marner, Scheifele, Ehlers. You can also put in Scheifele Wheeler as well. The list could go on. And, Matthews has been held goalless in 3 of 4 games versus Montreal. McDavid has 2 assists and 0 goals versus Montreal. Dreisseidel has 1 assist and 0 goals in 3 games. So those are, in 3 games against Montreal. Mm-hmm. Elias Pettersson has 2 goals and 0 assists in 5 games versus Montreal. So just by reading those numbers and stats, that shows you just how important Sherratt is to this Montreal defense.
Exactly. Paired with Shea Weber, you just kind of need that shutdown pair to be able to go up and go head to head with the, the other team's best players. Obviously, maybe the other teams are still beating the Habs. However, it's going to put you at an advantage when you're slowing down the top guys and you're just going to be able to relying on your guys to, get their jobs done.
To add to the tire fire in Buffalo Sabres land, Buffalo omits Jeff Skinner from PP1, even with Jack Eichel out of the lineup. The PP line 1 was Daly, Reinhart, Hall, Ristolainen, and Olofsson. He wasn't even on PP line 2, I don't think. So, we can obviously take this data and extract it and saying Coach Kruger is underutilizing Skinner. Like, how do you expect a guy who's playing 4th line jail time, basically 5-6 minutes a night, to help you score 40 goals or to help you get up to what he was normally at his, regular scoring pace?
Yeah, I think, when you look at the power play, I think, the 5 guys that they roll out there on the ice, I don't maybe disagree with Skinner not being on that, but it's even just you look at 5-on-5 time. Skinner's not even in the top 6 with Eichel out of the lineup. You got guys like Riley Shahan, being first line center. It's just a wild time, and they're still neglecting to give, Jeff Skinner any opportunity.
Jordan Binnington signs a 6x6, 6 years for $6 million. I think this is a good deal. I don't think it's too pricey. It totals out to $36 million. And hopefully Binnington can get back to that 2019 form that he was, when he won that Stanley Cup. And I think this sets the market value for, another free agent goalie like Freddie Anderson. And I think that Freddie Anderson, he's worth $6 million, but I don't think he's worth anything more than that, because what he's proven to me is only first round exits. So I'm not sure if I would be safe, if I would be happy paying Anderson like a 7 or a $7.5 million a year contract.
Yeah, I don't think he gets it either. I kind of like these 6x6 contracts, maybe a little more term for less money. Jacob Markstrom signed, a similar deal with Calgary in the offseason. And I just think, in terms of goaltending, they're a big part of the team. However, you can't be giving up too much of your salary to them, like, a Carey Price contract or a Sergei Bobrovsky. It just really, hinders your team's ability to, build around them. And I think, $6 million for a guy like Binnington is definitely a fair price.
I thought that Detroit actually played Tampa really well in their 2-game set against, against one another. On Tuesday, the Lightning won against Detroit in overtime, and actually Detroit beat Tampa Bay 6-4 on Thursday. So, we have to keep playing these bottom feeder teams, as hard as possible, because no matter what you tell me about the odds or, the puck line, whatever, there's always that chance that, an upset could happen. And we basically saw that with this series between Detroit and Tampa.
No, 100%. You can't underestimate these teams that, might be taken a little bit lightly. We've seen Ottawa, beat Toronto a couple times this year. You look at Detroit beating Tampa. Just, on any given night, especially in the NHL, I feel like any team can win, and that's just what makes the sport so interesting.
The Florida Panthers showed heavy resilience against the Columbus Blue Jackets. When they came back to win 4-1, they suffered a 4-1 deficit to win in overtime. And, I think that shows a lot of character for this Panthers team. It shows that, they basically battled until the final buzzer. And that's what you have to do in this league, because in a 56 game schedule, like we see, on Tuesday, like we mentioned, there's been 5 games there that went to overtime or shootout. So you always got to play until the final buzzer. And what I'm seeing from this league is that no matter the lead, you can be up 5-1 and choke that. No matter the lead, you never know until the final buzzer rings.
No, exactly. And I think this was a big win for Florida just because they've been so solid all season. But, just being able to have this kind of statement victory, I think is really positive. And, you look at Florida and you look at who they're playing, Columbus. I feel like Columbus is a really tough team to come back from a 3-goal deficit just because, the way they play, they kind of just already played a really defensive game. But when they're up by 3, that probably shifts, super extreme. And I think, for Florida to be able to get the victory in that game, just proves a lot. As their, status as a contender for this season.
Well, speaking of contenders, not much media is focusing on this, but the Carolina Hurricanes and New York Islanders are on their share of hot winning streaks. The Islanders are on a 9-game winning streak, I believe, and the Hurricanes are on an 8-game winning streak. So, it's a very fun time to watch, to tune into hockey. And I'm all for seeing, Carolina succeed and the Islanders succeed. We all know just how defensive Trotz is. I'm not too sure on the coaching scheme with Rod Brindamore there in Carolina, but I would assume it'd be more offensive due to their star talent. But yeah, I gotta love Carolina and New York on, a long game winning streak.
Exactly. You see any team on a big winning streak and you just got to be able to tune into at some point in their games, just, the level of play that they show, during any stretch when they're, finding a way to win a lot of games. It's just super exciting. And, the Islanders and Carolina both just, having their fair share of, success right now.
The Philadelphia Flyers, however, are on a cold streak. They're kind of trending in the wrong direction. They're 5-5-0 in their last 10, but they're on a 2-game losing streak. And if we go by the numbers, right, with Carter Hart and Brian Elliott. So firstly, with Carter Hart, the last 5 games, so he had an .846 save percentage March 13th versus the Capitals, but that was in relief of Brian Elliott, who started that game. He had a .625 save percentage March 9th versus the Sabres, which, is the game that, Nolan, you said, oh, yeah, well, if you had told me that Carter Hart would have been pulled or chased, that would be crazy. On March 7th, he had an .889 save percentage versus the Capitals. And on March 2nd, he had an .815 save percentage versus the Penguins. We could let's go into the Brian Elliott talk then. So last 5 games for Brian Elliott, he had a .700 save percentage March 13th versus the Capitals. So he was, that was the game that Elliott was pulled in. He had an .810 save percentage March 11th versus the Capitals. He had a .917 save percentage March 9th versus the Sabres in the comeback win. He was in relief of Carter Hart. He had an .852 save percentage March 6th versus the Penguins and an .897 save percentage March 4th versus the Penguins as well. So, the goaltending isn't really there for Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philadelphia last year was one of the hottest teams to end the season, and they kind of brought that into the bubble. Making their way, they lost to the Islanders in the conference semifinals. But this year, I don't know, they started off the season all right. But yeah, in their last couple of games, they've been struggling a lot. They've had a lot of COVID issues as well this year, a lot of star talent missing big games. But I think a big thing, is that, Philly has had, talent on their roster. They've had Giroux for the last, 10 years. They've had guys like Voracek, but, their goaltending hasn't been consistent. And we thought we had that, when Carter Hart kind of emerged as the starter. But this year, maybe a little bit of a different story. So we'll see how they recover.
And actually, you mentioned about Kirill Kaprizov being your Calder Trophy nominee there. Well, on Friday, he recorded his first career hat trick, a 4-0 shutout win versus Arizona. And, I might buy a, Subway jersey or the reverse retro of Minnesota, of Kaprizov, that is. He's just so fun to watch. Like, I love watching, him in the ozone because he muscles off guys. It's not like he floats around. but he muscles off guys. He muscles off defenders to get that edge in the O zone there. And I love everything about him.
Yeah, and I think he's a phenomenal skater. You'll see instances where he gets the puck in the offensive zone and he kind of will just, skate around in his own little head. Just kind of, he'll go around the net, but he creates space for himself, and he's had a hot streak in terms of scoring, and hopefully he'll be able to continue it. A reason, I was super high on him going into the season is because he's 23. He's McDavid's age, but he's playing as a rookie because he was in the KHL. So like you mentioned with muscling off, he's a rookie, but he has, that more mature body, and he has experience playing against adults in the KHL.
Well, that brings up the question there then. Should the NHL, kind of switch the Calder Trophy settings? Because right now it's, people that are aged 18, or you're the first season in the NHL, you're considered a rookie, but it kind of makes it an unfair competition when you've played 5 years in the KHL, so you've physically developed better, you're more mature than these guys that are just breaking into the NHL, like a Jack Hughes or a Capo Caco. So that brings up the question: do you think that the NHL should, I guess, adapt their Calder rules?
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting question. Maybe one of these days some 30-year-old guy will come into the league and win the Calder, and then they'll have to change the rule. But for now, I think it's fine. But there definitely is a gap. You have Panarin, who came in, he won the Calder in his first season because he was older than kind of the rest of the group. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting question you bring up.
And actually, speaking on that point earlier about Leon Draisaitl and setting that record, well, he actually did set the record on Friday night with most points versus an opponent in a single season versus the Senators with 17. And during that same night, Connor McDavid was the first player to reach 50 points this season. So, I think it's a very fun game to play when we say how many points is Connor McDavid going to achieve this season.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. I think, they're just an interesting group, and, 56 games, it's different from 82, where 100 seems achievable, but, we'll see what they're able to do in 56 games.
The Vegas Golden Knights actually won their first ever game in St. Louis. They won in overtime 5-4. That was a real shootout. I had that game on my TV, and, I enjoyed every minute of it. I'm not sure if you watched it, but it was a very fun game, to say the least.
Yeah, I tuned in as well, and it was great. St. Louis looked like they were going to win it. David Perron scored a power play goal in the third, and I thought that was going to be it. But, Alec Martinez, tied things up for Vegas, and they were able to capitalize on the power play in OT.
So John Tortorella, denied to the media that he benched Patrik Laine in their 4-1 loss, I believe, against Florida there in overtime. But Laine did miss the final 6.5 minutes of the third period. He didn't see an overtime shift, so it brings up the question, like, it's very odd that Tortorella would bench Laine twice in, I guess, twice as a Columbus Blue Jacket. Laine's not even, or, he's just a month, like, it's almost like been a month since the Laine Dubois trade. So, I think, and Tortorella went out to the press and said, like, yeah, I'm putting my best 5 forwards out there or whatever. And, I kind of disagree with him there, because I think Laine is among one of the one of the Columbus Blue Jackets' best forwards. And, this has been the second time that Laine has been benched. So that brings up the question, like, does Tortorella run stars out of town?
I think potentially, we saw this issue with Dubois and he wanted to leave. I think Columbus just generally isn't a super exciting place to play. If we have any listeners that live in the Columbus area, I'm sorry for kind of trashing on you a bit, but we've seen people, for the most part, just leave. Within the last 2 years, you've had Matt Duchene, Ryan Dzingel, Sergei Bobrovsky, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Artemi Panarin, these big name guys, leave Columbus. So I think it's a combination of Tortorella and, just the city itself. But Tortorella, he's such an interesting coach and very polarizing, and, it just doesn't work for every player.
And it's weird because Laine finished the game with 1 goal and 1 assist. Like, you don't bench a player when he contributes 2 points. And if you actually watch the replay and analyze Laine's position on the ice, it makes sense where he is, and one of the goals, he's covering the backdoor pass, but, the pass from the corner goes to the point. So that's not Laine's fault, because, there's 4 Columbus Blue Jackets in the corner, and he wants to make sure that the backdoor feed isn't there. So I think that's proper positioning. But yeah, I just don't agree with, Tortorella benching Laine.
Yeah, no, and he'll go down saying that he didn't bench him, but I feel like the stats that you pulled up saying that he didn't play in the final, 6.5 minutes or an OT, kind of proves that was the situation.
On Saturday, we got good news because Artemi Panarin, like you mentioned there in the Calder, he returned after a 9-game absence because he went home to Russia due to that whole allegation there brought up by an old coach. So he returns after a 9-game absence versus Boston. He had 1 assist during the game, and the Rangers went 5-4-0 during Panarin's absence. The regulation losses suck, but at least the wins, they got 1 more win than they did regulation loss. So it's good to see that the Rangers had a bit of success without Panarin.
Exactly. He was a Hart candidate last year, and for MVP, most valuable player. If you take an MVP off any team, it's going to be tough. But they were able to have a winning record, so that's super solid for them. Chris Kreider, thankful for my fantasy team, he was able to step up in that 9-game absence as well. But just having Panarin back is just super good thing for Rangers fans.
And we're going to add salt in the wound for Sabres fans because the Eichel Tower is out a minimum of 8 weeks, but they didn't clearly say that. That was reported by Aaron Ward. So the Sabres really just said he's out for the foreseeable future. But, I'm going to take Aaron Ward's, tweet there basically saying, he's out 8 weeks. He's out with a neck injury. So I think that's a pretty telling sign, with 8 weeks. Very dangerous area to get injured in. But there's really nothing for the Sabres fans to watch for because Cousins is out day to day. He's still out. And now the Eichel Tower's out. So, there's nothing exciting to watch for Sabres fans.
Exactly. I can actually bring up a real example. My bigger brother, he is a Sabres fan, and he told me today that, out of their 10-game losing streak that they're currently on, he's probably watched, about 20 minutes. It's just been super frustrating and, tough to tune into, especially when they're missing key players as well.
Now, I have an interesting thought here. I think if I'm a Sabres fan, I want as many wins as possible. Now, that's weird to say because they're dead last, right? And, they have nothing to play for but the draft lottery. And as we've seen I think it's actually been recorded that in the past 10 years, the last place team has only won the draft lottery twice. So if I'm a Sabres fan, I want as many wins as possible because as it stands right now, the odds to get 4th if you're dead last is 50.7%. That's kind of a big problem if you're the NHL, but I guess, that kind of eliminates tanking. And as we saw last year, the Red Wings kind of got screwed by that because they dropped from 1 to 4. So, I think that the Sabres need to win and because they don't want to get screwed by the draft lottery like they did in 2015.
Exactly. There's just a little bit of extra added pressure when you are the last place team going into the draft lottery. Like you mentioned, Detroit last year went from 1 to 4, and the Avalanche, they owned the Senators pick 2 years ago and they went from 1 to 4. So, maybe Buffalo does want to start winning some games.
Something weird happened during the Minnesota game as Zach Parise was benched for the last 13 minutes of the game. And I'm not sure what happened, but, Minnesota won 4-0. So it's weird to see that a leader, let alone a top 6 forward would get benched. And really the only positive that I can see out of this benching is Dean Evanson holding all of his players accountable, despite what the score is.
Yeah, exactly. Zach Parise had an issue last week. He got scratched, and in this game he ended up getting benched. Hopefully Parise is able to, collect his things and not have any issues for the rest of the season. But I think, it is a positive thing. When you're a contending team like the Wild have kind of, appeared to be this season, like you mentioned, second in the West. You're going to want your coach being able to, be hard on the guys no matter, how the team is doing. You just kind of want to have, a strict attitude no matter what the situation is.
If you're wondering where Keith Kincaid is, well, he just posted an 18-save shutout against Boston. So, that's a huge confidence boost to the kid who's been basically out of the league for almost a year or two. Great to see Keith Kincaid back in the net and posting a huge shutout against a tough opponent.
Yeah, knock on wood, he does well again tonight. He got the start as well, second straight game. So luckily for him. Shesterkin out with a little bit of an injury. Maybe we'll see him come back this week, but Keith Kincaid taking advantage of the injuries that are in the Rangers net.
Tomas Hertl made his return from, suffering from the coronavirus disease against the Anaheim Ducks. He posted 2 points, 1 goal and 1 assist. Great to see that so far he hasn't had any short-term effects from it, any physical short-terms from it right now, because clearly he's back and, effective for the Sharks.
Exactly. They need everyone healthy as they can. They have some nice pieces, Thomas Hertl, Timo Meier, Logan Couture, Evander Kane, some decent pieces, but they need to be healthy in the lineup for the Sharks to do anything. 2 years ago, they were only 2 games away from the Cup final. They lost to St. Louis in 6 in the conference final, but the Sharks team has just kind of, flipped on its head, and now they're kind of viewed as, a bottom feeder team in the league. But like you mentioned, Thomas Hertl, is just a positive thing that we haven't seen any short-term effects so far.
The Canucks ended the Oilers' 4-game win streak. I thought this was notable because, maybe this is a bump in the road for the Oilers there. Like you mentioned, it's, they had an original adversity at the start of the season. Well, maybe this Canucks loss there on Saturday night would be, kind of adversity that they have to go through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously, not a good thing for the Oilers to lose, but, potentially a positive thing. I've mentioned earlier that I don't love pairing McDavid and Dreisseidel 5-on-5 together, just, in terms of giving the Oilers a chance to win the game. And in this game, they weren't able to do anything 5-on-5. The 1 goal came on the power play. And then, Thatcher Demko, he just played lights out, and he's been so solid. It's tough, when he's on his game, to be getting anything on him.
On Sunday, in terms of offense, I think Anaheim should now call up Jamie Drysdale because he has 9 points in 12 games. That's 4 goals and 5 assists. And, if they're looking for offense like they did with, trying to move up Trevor Zegras, I think they should try and move up Jamie Drysdale right now.
Exactly. I think, he's a player. He's probably, maybe not NHL ready on every team, but for Anaheim, I think he could definitely step into their top 6 and, bring an impact and get him a little bit of experience, before they try to, compete with, their current core.
The Sens scored 2 goals in 7 seconds on Sunday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Battle of Ontario was back in action. This was the fastest 2 goals in team history. And, what a night to do it against your, hometown rival.
Yeah, it was such an interesting one because, with Leafs Ottawa, you think, it's going to go one of 2 ways. There's going to be some way the Senators pull out the win or the Leafs are going to blow them out. It was an interesting one, right off the bat, the Senators were able to make it 2-0, chasing Hutchinson, who's been solid so far this season. Michael Hutchinson kind of got clowned on last year for being one of the worst goalies in the league. And I think we saw a bit of, that Michael Hutchinson last night.
And, I just wanted to speak about the Leafs they pulled their goalie, and it was a weird strategy because, the Leafs pulled their goalie with about 6 minutes and 20 seconds left in the third period, which resulted in a goal. They were down 4-1 at this point. So that would have made it 4-2. And then actually Freddie Anderson, changed during live play while their top 2 lines were rested. The third line was out, the Engvall, Mikheyev line that was out. And I thought that was really interesting that, we never really see a goalie do a line change while the play's going on.
Yeah, no, it was a super interesting, kind of weird, end of the game scenario. I think, in the past years, we've been seeing the strategy of, having 6 guys out there, later, maybe with 5 minutes left, whereas, pulling the goalie seemed like a really late game strategy a couple, maybe 10 years ago. I was able to put, 2 goals in the net. I think, like you mentioned, the final score was 4-3.
And, Tkachuk and Colin White had multiple attempts to hit the empty net. And at that point, when Tkachuk and White had their chances and they both missed, I thought the Leafs were going to come back and win. Like, I really thought that was going to bite them in the rear end.
Yeah, you hate to see a missed empty net attempt because, just if the other team is able to, turn things around and score, it's just going to hurt that much more.
And, if you're not sure who the Senators goalie is, well, refer to Pagcast episode 22, because that was Joey Decord's first career NHL win. And if you missed his post-game presser with Kyle Bukauskas, another Pagcast guest, I should mention, it was awesome. I was happy during the whole night seeing Decord look so confident, having his swagger. Just a great story there. And, what a win. It was a real nail-biter of a win.
Exactly. The top team in the North, you're beating the Leafs. I think it's, a great thing for Joey Decord. He's been solid so far, but he's finally able to get that win, and potentially he's going to start stealing even more starts from Matt Murray.
And, that was Toronto's fifth loss in 6 games. And I should say that's Toronto's 5th regulation loss in the last 6 games. So, not a bright spot if you're a Leafs fan.
Yeah, that's what it took for Hogan to finally take them out of that top spot in his power rankings. I think they're number 2 this week, and they haven't been there since the Habs were number 1.
And, you mentioned to me during this Down to the Wire episode here that the Isles and Devils game that you were watching actually ended in controversial fashion because it was due to a successful coach's challenge for offside. And that was a quarter of an inch. Like, we're getting down to the nitty gritty of that offside rule. And I'm waiting for this to happen in a Stanley Cup playoff game. All right. It's a Stanley Cup playoff game and it's overtime. I don't care what game it is. I don't care if it's game 1, 2, 3. I don't care.
Stanley Cup final, game 7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We could add salt to the wound in game 7. Like this is, I'm so done with it, man. I don't know why. Obviously people are hiring video replay assistants. Like, you could probably get paid for that job just for sitting there and studying, like, okay, now we have to see if this guy's offside. And, it's just so annoying. It annoys me so much.
I do agree. Obviously you do want a fair game, and getting away with these things is a little bit annoying, like you said, or for players, if you lose the game and the other team was offside, it's unfortunate. But, maybe there is a rule that is going to come in place, in terms of the challenge during overtime, because it's just such a strange thing. If the call wasn't made on the ice, watching the replay to determine whether or not it was offside, the ref, he should have been able to make the call right when it happened. It looked pretty clear to me, but it was just an unfortunate way to end things for the Devils and the Isles, keep their winning streak alive.
It is. And, I think that, and plus, it's not like it was so egregious, right? And this rule was put in place because of the Matt Duchene, right? So it's not like it was so blatant and so clear that the Devils player was offside. It was a quarter of an inch. And I think at that point, you should just let it go. Like, players are still competing to the end of the game, right?
No, 100%. And it made me sad because PK Subban scored the OT winner, had a nice little celebration, and had to have that taken away from him.
Well, before we get to Pegasus Predictions, we should probably talk about the aforementioned power rankings put out by Zach Hogan. So to start off, we had the Jets at 1, the Leafs at 2, the Oilers at 3, the Flames at 4, the Canucks at 5, the Habs at 6, and the Sens at 7. So I'm going to go and share my power rankings for the week. I have the Jets number 1. I have the Oilers number 2. I have the Leafs 3rd. I have Calgary 4th. I have Montreal 5th. I have Vancouver 6th. And I have Ottawa 7th.
I pretty much don't have any issues with Hogan's rankings. You could argue to put the Habs over the Vancouver Canucks, and that's probably what I would do. I think, the reason that the Canucks are getting these wins right now is because Thatcher Demko is playing incredible. But, when he goes maybe a little bit more down to earth, we might start to see, the Canucks start to drop again in those power rankings.
And I think, with like I said, the Leafs are on a 5, they're 1-5 in their last 6 games. I think that the Leafs have to be bottom 3, or not bottom 3, but they have to be 3rd place. There's no reason why Edmonton shouldn't be 2nd. Edmonton's doing pretty well right now. Calgary obviously just finished a 2-game sweep over Montreal, so it makes sense that Calgary's in the 4th position over Montreal. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, the Leafs, obviously, I still do think they're, top 2 team in the North. It's going to be tough to, justify them anything other than that.
So we have set. Oh, sorry.
For me, at least, that's the way I think.
We have 7 games on tap Tuesday night. So getting into Pegasus predictions, I actually went 7-2 last week. I have the Devils beating the Sabres. I have the Islanders beating the Capitals, the Bruins over the Penguins, the Hurricanes over the Red Wings, the Wild over the Coyotes, Lightning over the Stars, and the Avalanche over the Ducks.
Not bad. I'll take, my streak comes to an end because I was taking the Sabres the last couple of weeks. Maybe that was a bad thing. Every time I pick them, they seem to lose. So I'll take the Devils this time. I'll agree with you on the Islanders. They're just playing super well right now. I'll go Bruins over Penguins, Hurricanes over Red Wings, Lightning over Coyotes. I'll actually go with the Stars over the Lightning. Like you mentioned, they're losing. I'm not sure what the score is right now, but they're losing to Nashville. They had a couple bad games against Detroit. Maybe the Lightning are on a bit of a slump and people just aren't seeing that. And then I'll go with the Avalanche over the Ducks. I think that's an easy pick as well.
Well, I'd like to thank Nolan Thode again for joining me on another edition of Down to the Wire.
It's always a pleasure, Pags.